Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining in. I have another great show planned for you this week. Later on, I'll have with me Dr. Georgia Kurko, the Executive Director of the Laughlin Chapel here in Wheeling. We'll talk all about what that organization does, but first start off with some usual features. And it's hard to believe that it's October. This year just keeps flying on by. It seems like I was just saying it's hard to believe it's September and it's been a whole month. But the month of October is my favorite month of the year. Beautiful time of year. And this weekend, one of the reasons it's my favorite month, Ogilvy Fest. Always an exciting time here in the Wheeling area. Go up to Ogilvy, there are so many things going on up at Ogilvy for the local area, whether it be going and enjoying the food or the vendors, the Fort Henry days when they're reenacting some of the things from the Revolutionary War, going and checking out the Ohio County Fair with so many of the kids showing their animals and taking care of them and things of that nature. And of course, fireworks on Saturday night. Always a lot of fun for everybody. Maybe a little bit warmer forecast than we're used to for Ogilvy Fest this weekend. Typically you get that fall feeling in the air for the first time, but looks like it's going to be a warm one, but also a good one for the local area for Ogilvy Fest. So go up and check out some of the festivities. It's always a blast, and be prepared to walk a little bit if you're going to go from place to place. But it's a nice day for a walk, and of course there's a lot of trails and walking paths at Ogilvy, and just a nice day for the whole family. So check it out this weekend up at Ogilvy Fest. Speaking of this weekend, another big event is homecoming down at West Virginia University, and we'll be talking, of course, about the football game between WVU and Kansas later on in the show, but always a fun time as well. Parade in Morgantown on Friday night, the homecoming parade. I always enjoyed being there on High Street and watching the different floats and people marching and going by. And in fact, when I was a kid, when my mom was in law school, I always enjoyed just looking for the drunk people. That was always a fun time too. But a lot of fun in Morgantown surrounding that game. A lot of people going back to their alma mater. My wife went to school there, my parents, my brother, pretty much my whole family. So I always enjoy that weekend and the festivities associated with homecoming. And through the years, we've had a number of people from the local area that have been on the homecoming court and things of that nature at WVU. So a fun time there as well. And speaking of homecoming, one of the things that I've noticed recently in the local area with the high schools are all these, kind of wild and crazy homecoming proposals that you see on social media. When I was, younger, you went up to a girl and asked her if she would like to go to the dance with you, and she hopefully would say yes. But now there's these elaborate things where they're coming up with these props and all these different stuff, and it seems to me like it's mostly for social media for the most part. But it causes me a little bit of concern, just because for some kids it's difficult to do things like that. First of all, they may not have the means. Second of all, they may not have the creativity, and it's hard enough just to ask someone to go to a dance with you. You get up the nerve to do it, and are they going to say yes? Now I'm going to have to come up with all these elaborate things and all that. It's a little bit over the top for me. Maybe like even a little bit more elaborate than like my engagement proposal to my wife in some ways. I'm not a real big fan of it. My kids aren't at that age yet, but I'm just seeing some of it, and it causes me concern as to how it may affect some kids that maybe don't have the ability to do that, or don't have the way to come up with that creative way, and they feel maybe they shouldn't ask someone to the dance because they can't come up with that, because it just makes them that much more nervous. I like to see it go back to the old way of just asking people, but seems the way it may be. And another thing that social media tends to be driving to a large extent. And speaking of social media, I've seen so much anger on social media recently, so much criticism. And I guess it's not just even lately, but it's been in the past couple of years. And I've been thinking about what can we do about this? Social media, you say something on social media to someone, about someone, and sometimes it's even anonymously. People post things under other names and things of that nature. It can really have an effect on someone's life. It can really hurt them. It's something that can cause even young kids and maybe even adults to things like suicide, because people are talking about them. We really have to be careful about social media. I think the rule of thumb is, the same rule of thumb that I heard when I was growing up. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. If we could follow that same rule on social media, I think we'd be a lot better off. Use social media to, if you want to post pictures of people, fine. If you want to say, hey, I had this great thing today, went to this fantastic restaurant, went to whatever it may be, but why do we have to be negative? Let's try to eliminate negativity, and I think we'd be a lot better off in terms of our personal lives and certainly society as well. So let's try to keep that as a rule of thumb as best we can, and only say the positive things on social media. Maybe keep the negative ones in our head. Maybe think a little bit harder and longer before posting on social media as to, hey, do I really want to offend somebody? Is this really a nice thing to say? is this really the Christian thing to say? Is this really something that's living up to, hey, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all? So just kind of some words for thought there, and hopefully maybe it'll help some folks out there. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll have with me Dr. Georgia Kurko from the Laughlin Chapel. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Recommended by the highest authorities. Danoon Lumber.
Looks like a bad one's coming. Yeah. Right?
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. I have with me Dr. Georgia Kurko, who's the Executive Director of the Laughlin Chapel here in Wheeling. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I wanted to take a minute to thank you at the firm for sending the volunteers to us for the Day of Caring. They did a phenomenal job with helping us sort through old files, mediocre files, and then get some new ones up to date and spruced up. So I really thank you for loaning their time and their talent to us for that day.
Well, you're welcome. I know we enjoyed being there. I think I can speak for the entire crew that was there. You know, it was eye-opening for us. I mean, I know it was for me to see what you do, and you know the just the need for organizations like yours to have people come in for just a day, even, and the be able to just help out a little bit. And
yes.
I'm glad we were able to do it. And I think that all the folks from my firm that came down, there were probably 10 of us or something, and I think they really enjoyed it in addition to seeing the organization and being able to help out. So thanks for having us in.
Absolutely. It worked well.
It also allowed us to meet and get you here on the show. So
right. Again, that was good timing on someone's part.
Yeah.
Really worked out.
So the one thing I didn't know about Laughlin Chapel before coming down there, I didn't even know that day when I was going down there. I'm like, what is the Laughlin Chapel? I'm thinking, am I going to a church? I didn't know what it was. So people may not, I think, just not know what the Laughlin Chapel is. Yeah,
the name is confusing. I'm the first to admit that. I've been there about a year and a few months, so I'm new at the executive director position. But for me too, it was an unknown entity in a way. So looking into it further, first of all, the name chapel is from the original days. The chapel is about 140 plus years in existence in the community. That's a family name, the Laughlin part, and at first I said it incorrectly, sort of like Laughlin, but the family name is Laughlin. So that all is mixed up into what exactly goes on behind the doors of a place that isn't a church but is called a chapel, and with an odd name. So once you get behind the doors of the chapel, you can see what's happening. It's a place for kids, for young people in the community, young adults. We have after-school program, that's our main focus. We invite kids to come there after school, invite their families to send them, and they're kindergartners through middle schoolers. And we open the doors, welcome them to come in, get greeted with a snack, and maybe with a little bit of attention paid to how their day went, a little bit of a break there between school and then homework. So then we, as the staff there and volunteers, dive into supervising homework, helping with homework. Even the little ones have enough of an assignment to do that fills up that time, and we end our time together with a hot meal for their supper, and then they go home on our chapel bus. And so it's a few hours, but it's packed with a lot going on behind the doors.
One of the questions people may have is, where are the doors? Where's the chapel located?
We're located on 18th Street, kind of near the Catholic Charities Neighborhood Center, on that same street there. And we service kids then who come, or in the community, but from a bigger area than just that neighborhood. So we pick them up with our school bus, or they're sent by their own school bus to us from schools like the Island Madison Elementary School, Ritchie Elementary School, and then the junior highs, Wheeling Middle School and also Triadelphia Middle School. We have a student from Steenrod right now, so we're open for kids from the area to come in.
What do people have to do to qualify? Are there any income requirements? Are there any other requirements for kids to be able to go there?
Good question. There aren't any requirements at all. It's a totally free program, so we are offering that to kids in the community who need it. And the limitation for us is basically not our building. The building is larger than we are even using right now.
It's huge. I couldn't believe it when I was in there.
It's a big, nice facility, renovated. Part of it is renovated, that's brand new with good classroom sizes, but limited a little bit by the use of our bus to take kids home. So at some point we dream about maybe we'd add another bus to our resources and expand, but at this point that's what limits us. And we'd like to see the chapel filled on the off days that we don't have after school programming. We don't meet on Fridays for that. We don't meet obviously on the weekend, but we want to have the facility open for kids and their families for whatever could be helpful on the weekends as well. That's our dream.
How many kids do you have there on a typical day?
On a typical day, we probably have about 52, I'd say, as an average. We have enrollment now of 61 for that after-school program. And depending on what's going on in maybe the family's life that after-school time, kids may be gone for appointments, they might be gone for different activities, but basically about 50, 52 each day.
So they come in after school, and then how long do they stay? I mean, how long to the evening does that go?
They're there from that time until literally 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we load them on the bus and we take them home on our route. And the route is just about an hour long, so they're home by 7 in our building until 6.
Now, does the route travel all throughout the county, or where does the bus go to take people home?
It's in communities like East Wheeling or Wheeling Island. So if you would happen to want to put a child in our chapel program and you lived outside of our bus route, we're limited by the regulations on that to the hour. But people could still join in the services because they would just have to provide transportation for the children if you live outside of our route. Okay. I can't really describe it geographically, but it's about it. If you start at the chapel and you go all around the little communities that make up the area, whenever you're done with an hour, you'll be at the end of our route. So East Wheeling, I think I mentioned that, Wheeling Island, South Wheeling, Wheeling Heights, those areas are where we literally service with our bus.
Well, we need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with Dr. Kurko about some of the things going on at the chapel and some of the needs they may have. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
You earned it. Let us help you save it. Belmont Savings Bank. Focused on your future.
So, how was your first day?
Long. So, Josh asked me about you.
Daddy's home. Go get him.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years. The Hardwood Specialists. DeNoon Lumber.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, Dr. Georgia Kurko, the Executive Director of the Laughlin Chapel here in Wheeling. And we were talking about, how the kids come in after school and do their homework and things. And one of the things you mentioned was a snack and then a hot meal. And
yes.
You were telling me earlier that for some of these kids, it's good that they get that hot meal because you don't always know if they're getting one otherwise. And it's great that that's provided there.
Yes, it's a delicate subject to talk about whether kids would get nutrition if they were not under our care. But one thing I'm sure of is that for any family that's busy with whether it's work, parents working, guardians working, or taking care of family matters, or busy with other things, for the child to get that, and when the child's coming home that they have received supper, they've had attention around the supper table, they have had a chance to talk to an adult about things that happen. I know that's got to be reassuring to all of our families, no matter what the situation is, but certainly if there's food insecurity or anything else, we are definitely addressing that.
That's one of the things I thought was pretty notable when I was there, was how you told us that there's an adult sitting at every table with the
Yes.
kids when they're eating, and to be able to talk to them about their day and to make that child feel as though, hey, somebody cares about what just happened. I'm not just going home because maybe mom or dad's still at work or whatever,
Right.
and it's just an empty house. Instead, somebody right when you come home saying, hey, how are things today?
Right. Now, the unfortunate part about that, it is a claim that I do make. There's an adult at every table. It doesn't happen literally every day yet because we're still building up our volunteer base. So we welcome people to look at what's going on there, hear about it, and come and join us for that supper table conversation. As an adult, you don't need to prepare for that. You don't need special training, no special skills, just an interest in children. And the better our program is, the better I judge it as being is when there is an adult at every table. Definitely our stated goal.
Let's talk about that. Okay,
Okay,
volunteers. You know,
Yes.
on a given day, I mean, how many volunteers do you have, and how many would you really like to have?
That's a great question. On a given day, on the average, we have 10. Those are local school students in school at local colleges. For example, Wheeling Jesuit University sends a number each day. Those students are doing social service, maybe required in a way, but once they come in, they seem to do this volunteer above and beyond the hours that are required. Other colleges send students off and on. Some are adults that just happen to have an interest in what's going on, and they stop by to help us out. So if we have 10, we could certainly use 20. That would not be a stretch at all for us. And on days when we can actually have 30 or more, it sounds like, well, what are you trying to do, get one-on-one attention for kids? But we absolutely would welcome that. The days that stand out in our kids' minds when we talk about chapel are days when we had that number of volunteers. Because when we do it that way, we don't have one adult for 3 or 4 kids. We have one for each one. And if you can imagine a child's maybe delight and also maybe reluctance to actually have one person watch homework, go to the supper table with you. It's both intimidating for some kids at first, but it's really a pleasure for them to have that kind of attention. And we say that's what we offer to kids. We offer attention, positive attention, and that's not always available in big doses to kids.
You talk about homework, and you get these kids. Say maybe you have a third grader from Madison and a third grader from Ritchie, and they may be studying different things at their respective schools that day, and you got to help them both with their homework. I mean, that could be. It's a challenge to help one child with their homework.
Yes.
Let alone a couple of kids, and they this one has this lesson, this one has this lesson, and now we got to figure out what it is they're supposed to be working on and help them and move them along with it. That's got to be tough.
It's tricky. I tell you, I'm not bragging, but I have a doctorate of education, and I really cannot do this alone. I'm in the class with kindergarten and first graders. There's 15 of them, and there's me, and on good days there's 1 or 2 volunteers. But we have 5 schools in there, and so as they're each having a separate assignment, the homework should be done with an adult and a child. So you kind of learn, what's my child good at? What's this child needing help with? But we're kind of doing it a little bit differently because of the numbers. So if I need to go through 5 sets of homework with 15 kids, maybe some are a little bit slower at whatever the skill is, some are really quick at it. But we need to keep them together, and then in that 1 hour, get through all of those sets. It's a challenge. It's very interesting, and the kids are patient. That's the good part of it, because some would maybe get some free time early on in the hour where they can go and play, but they have to play pretty quietly as we're trying to get homework done. So we have a large enough room. We have definitely enough children to challenge us, but it's the volunteers that are needed to make the program really work well.
One of the things I found interesting is that even though it's called chapel, I mean, it's not a church, it's not affiliated with the church, but it does it does utilize faith-based principles with respect to what you're doing, and that's something that I thought was notable as well.
Yes, over 140 years ago, the chapel's origin was with the First Presbyterian Church in Wheeling. That church started the outreach into the other community on the 18th Street from their location in downtown Wheeling. And I'm not sure what was going on back then, but I know it was an effort to help families. Over the years, First Presbyterian still plays a big role. The pastor there is currently on our board. Our accountant is in that building helping us out with those matters. But the oversight of the chapel we're a nonprofit, so we have a board of directors. That's our overseers. But the Upper Ohio Valley Presbytery still has a role to play with us, a big role in support, in financial support, in sending volunteers and sending supplies that are needed. So we're a faith-based group for sure. We're teaching in that Christian principles, but not as classes, not as lessons. As the staff interacts with kids, that's where we're coming from. That's our worldview. And we do offer the kids in the after-school program a once-a-month worship service. Local pastors are invited to come in and share with kids what's appropriate for them to know from scriptures. So all that's going on is kind of over an overview of what happens is that religious orientation is there. Kids are getting specific help, getting the meals, and getting the attention. That's probably what we do in a nutshell.
If people want to help or volunteer, how can they get in touch?
They can contact us by using our phone number. It's 304-232-2630. That's the Lockland Chapel number. They could stop by in person and just fill an application. We just ask that people be over high school age to volunteer due to the restrictions of what we can do with kids. And we have a few forms for people to fill out, and then we just put them right to work as they have time. You could spend a day a month there, you could spend 2 days a week, you could do whatever fits your schedule.
And I think that's important for people to know. They don't have
Yes.
it doesn't have to be an everyday thing.
Not at all.
Well, I really appreciate your time here coming on the show and explaining to people what you do and all the good work you're doing for kids down at the Lockland Chapel, and I certainly wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Sure thing.
Appreciate that.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show. People in nursing homes are some of the most vulnerable members of our society. They're there because they can't take care of themselves. Those facilities have a duty to take care of our loved ones, and when they don't, it's important they're held accountable. We've not only collected record results against negligent nursing homes, but more importantly, we've helped so many families get the answers and closure they so badly needed.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Disasters happen. Pick the team that takes care of them all. Powered by offices in Wheeling, Morgantown, and Pittsburgh, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. We have the right people, knowledge, and equipment to respond 24 hours a day.
I'm Dana Hogerson. When disaster strikes your home or business, tell your insurance provider you prefer the restoration company the Mountaineers call, Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and we'll start in Pittsburgh. And let's talk about the Pirates now that the season is over. Finished 82-79, a winning record. Before the season started, I said they would surprise people this year, maybe finish second in the division. Didn't quite happen. Finished fourth, but a strong division, of course, with the Brewers, the Cubs, the Cardinals all having good seasons, and of course the Cubs getting knocked out early on here, losing in the wild card game, and interesting season for the Pirates. Some trades preseason, then picking up some guys during the season. I think they've kind of solidified the pitching heading into next year. The question is going to be the offense. Jay Hay not likely to be around. Jordy Mercer probably going to be gone. So now I'll be looking to some newer faces, Moran and people like that, Josh Bell, to maybe carry the torch. So we'll keep an eye on the Pirates in the offseason to see what they do, but definitely going to have to get a little more offense in the lineup in order to have a chance to succeed and provide some support to the pitching staff. So we'll keep an eye there. Sticking around in Pittsburgh, Steelers with a disappointing loss to the Ravens, 26-14. Couldn't score in the second half. Came down 2 touchdowns right away, 14-0. Come back, tie it, but then just can't do anything in the second half on offense. And like less than 20 yards rushing in the game. The secondary just looks poor. And part of the problem is I see with the Steelers is they refuse to get a pass rush. They basically rush 3 guys all night, sometimes 4, but no blitzing really. They decide, our secondary can't cover, so we're going to have a bunch of guys back there. But I think that's the wrong approach. Having been a defensive coordinator at the high school level, albeit, but nonetheless, having called defenses for a number of years, my belief is at any level, you have to get pressure on the passer. And I think that's particularly true with guys like Joe Flacco. Rattle them a little bit. Even if you don't get to them every time, they got to be thinking about that you're coming or not knowing where you're coming from. To let them just sit back there and look, I think is the wrong way to go, and I think that was part of the reason for the loss. And now the Steelers get the Atlanta Falcons, who, the record isn't what you would think it would be for the Falcons, but they have Matt Ryan, and they can score points. Julio Jones, receiver, and I think they have to send some pressure this week in order to have a chance to win. They got to get after the quarterback. So we'll see if the Steelers do that. I think they won't lose another game here consecutively at home. I think they'll win this one by a field goal, but they've got to get some pressure on the quarterback and find a way to run the ball a little bit. Le'Veon Bell, in big news, it's now starting to hint around that he'll be back during the bye week. Falcons this week, then Cincinnati Bengals the following week, then a bye. Likely maybe he'll return during the bye week, and we'll see how the team receives him. Different players making different comments on that. Let's set out your college football Saturday for this week. First of all, at noon, as I mentioned earlier in the show, homecoming weekend for WVU. Kansas will face the number 9 Mountaineers in Morgantown. I think the Mountaineers will roll big in this one. Will Greer having a great season. I think they'll continue to do well. But the defense, the big news, gave up some points in the second half last week against Texas Tech, but that's a high-scoring offense the Texas Tech team is. I think the Mountaineers will win this one big and will continue to show people that they're a team to be reckoned with for the rest of the season. Also at noon in the Big 12 Conference, the Red River rivalry between number 19 Texas and number 7 Oklahoma. That game's on Fox. And, by the way, WVU's on ESPN too if you want to catch that one. Texas is still just inconsistent in my mind. This would be a signature win for head coach Tom Herman, relatively new coach down there still. But I just don't think they have enough firepower to beat Oklahoma, and especially in a rivalry game. Oklahoma is going to be on alert in this one. There's no way they're going to let their guard down. Oklahoma, but by a touchdown. I think it'll be a pretty close one. Then at 3:30, another big rivalry type game, the SEC, number 5 LSU at number 22 Florida on CBS right here on WTRF. Swamp's a tough place to play. It's loud down there. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. A couple good defenses there. I love Danny Mullen, the Florida coach. He actually got a graduate assistant job at Notre Dame over me once upon a time back in the late 1990s. So I followed his career very closely because I was kind of interested in the position there, and Danny Mullen got it, and he's going to do some really great things. My life has turned out fantastic, though, so I'm happy as well, but I love following Danny Mullen. I think Florida wins this one in a close one because they're at home. And then 8 o'clock, number 6 ranked Notre Dame at number 24 Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was one of my upset picks last week. I took them over Duke. I hit that one. Notre Dame has found the quarterback. 2 great performances in a row by Ian Book, coming off the big win over Stanford. Dexter Williams returned at running back for Notre Dame after sitting out the first 4 games due to an issue that wasn't disclosed to what it was. But Notre Dame lost guard Alex Bars in that game. But the Virginia Tech defensive special teams is always good, but not good enough to stop this Notre Dame team. Notre Dame by double digits. And I'm going to give you 2 upset picks again this week. Last week I gave you Virginia Tech over Duke. I missed on Pitt big time. But I'm going to give you Texas A&M with the upset at home against number 13 Kentucky. And then Arizona State goes on the road and upsets number 21 Colorado. I like both those teams in those games this week. Hopefully I do a little better than I did with Pitt last week. I should know better than pick Pitt. I should know better. I shouldn't have done it, but I thought Central Florida was due for a loss, not to be. That's all the time we have this week. I hope you have a great weekend and the rest of your week. We'll see you next time on the Jamie Bordas Show.